I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture the room. It's 10:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. The house is quiet, maybe too quiet. You can hear the hum of the refrigerator. You can hear a car driving by outside. And in front of you is a laptop screen, and on that screen is a blinking cursor, just blinking, mocking you.
The dreaded blank page. I know it well.
Hey, it's not just a blank page, though. It's a presentation. A massive career-defining presentation due at 9:00 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh, the stakes are high.
The highest. And you have known about this for 3 weeks. 3 whole weeks. And in those 3 weeks, you have done absolutely nothing.
Well, not nothing.
You're right, not nothing. You reorganized your bookshelf by color. You went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about the history of the spork. You deep cleaned the grout in your shower with a toothbrush.
That grout really needed it, though.
It was pristine. But the slides, the actual work, empty.
This is the universal experience, the procrastination spiral. I think every single person listening right now has a visceral memory of that exact moment. The guilt, the anxiety, the absolute certainty that you are going to fail.
But then something happens. It's usually around 10:3 or 11:0 p.m. It's like a biological switch flips in your brain. The fog clears.
Yeah.
The desire to look up sport history vanishes. You sit down, your pupils dilate, and you become a machine.
You're in the zone.
Completely. You type faster than you can think. You don't need food. You don't need sleep. You barely need to blink. You work for 8 hours straight. You hit send at 6 a.m. And here is the kicker. It's actually pretty good work.
It's the deadline miracle.
Exactly, the deadline miracle. And for years, I've asked myself, is this just extreme laziness followed by dumb luck, or is it actually a secret superpower? Because in that moment, I feel like a superhero.
A very tired one.
A tired, sweaty superhero, but a superhero nonetheless.
It feels like a superpower, and in a very specific biological sense, it is. But the literature doesn't call it a miracle. They often refer to it as desperation-induced productivity.
That sounds less heroic.
It is, and what you are experiencing isn't magic. It is a massive, coordinated, high-stakes chemical hijack of your own brain.
See, chemical hijack sounds significantly more ominous than superpower.
It should, because while it works, and we're going to talk about why it works so effectively, it comes with a price tag that most of us are ignoring.
Okay.
We treat our bodies like a rental car that we're driving off a cliff, assuming we can just jump out at the last second.
That is a terrifyingly accurate image.
So the mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the engine. We want to understand what is happening in your biology when you wait until the last minute. We're going to look at the neurobiology of that focus, the behavioral economics of why we are wired to wait, and most importantly, how we can get that same level of productivity without the emotional breakdown.
I am ready to learn, but I'm also ready to be slightly called out. What kind of sources are we looking at today to solve this mystery?
We have a really heavy stack today. We've got neurobiology papers explaining the specific neurotransmitters involved in the stress response, and we're going way beyond just adrenaline.
Okay.
We have behavioral economics research on something called hyperbolic discounting, which basically explains the math behind why we ignore the future.
Math of procrastination. I love it.
We're also looking at studies on active versus passive procrastination and some really fascinating work on executive function and ADHD from researchers like Dr. Ari Tuckman.
Okay, let's dive in. Take me back to that moment, 10:01 p.m. The panic sets in. The, oh my God, I'm going to get fired feeling. What is physically happening in my brain to turn me from a couch potato into a productivity gladiator?
To understand the switch, you have to understand the state you were in before the switch. When you're cleaning the grout or staring at the wall, your brain is likely operating within the default mode network.
The default mode network, that sounds like screensaver mode.
That is a perfect analogy. It's the network of brain regions that is active when you aren't focused on the outside world.
So when I'm just spacing out.
Exactly. It's associated with daydreaming, wandering thoughts, self-reference, and remembering the past. It's a low-energy, meandering state.
Which sounds nice.
It's crucial for creativity and consolidating memories, but it is terrible for execution. It's not a doing state.
So Tuesday afternoon, my brain is in screensaver mode, just bouncing the DVD logo around the corner of the screen.
Precisely. But when you look at the clock and realize the deadline is imminent, when the threat becomes real, your brain has to shift gears.
It has to wake up.
It has to suppress the default mode network and activate the executive control network. And this isn't a gentle transition, it's a chemical flood.
Okay, so who are the first responders here? What's the first chemical to hit the scene?
It starts with the sympathetic adrenomedullary axis, or the SAM axis.
The SAM axis. It sounds like a piece of military hardware. Or a missile system.
It basically is your body's missile defense system. This is your rapid response unit. It's electrical and chemical.
So it's fast.
Incredibly fast. When the brain perceives the threat, I will fail, the hypothalamus sends a signal down the spinal cord to the adrenal medulla. Boom. It releases catecholamines.
Catecholamines. Okay, what are those?
Specifically for this response, adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Okay, I know adrenaline. That's the fight or flight juice.
Right. But let's get specific about what it does. This causes immediate physiological arousal. Your heart rate skyrockets to pump blood to major muscle groups.
I can feel that. My heart starts pounding.
Your pupils dilate to take in more light. Your bronchial tubes expand so you can get more oxygen. Your digestion stocks.
Which makes sense if I'm running from a bear. It makes less sense if I'm sitting in an ergonomic chair typing a spreadsheet.
That is the evolutionary mismatch. Your body doesn't know the difference between the presentation is due and a tiger is chasing me. The SAM axis is designed for immediate physical survival.
So it just has one big red button and it presses it for everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It creates a state of hypervigilance. You are awake. You are alert.
Okay, so that explains why I'm not sleepy anymore. But being awake isn't the same as being focused. I can be wide awake and still scrolling Twitter.
A very common problem.
So where does the laser focus come from? The tunnel vision.
That is where the neurochemistry gets really interesting. It's not just adrenaline. It's dopamine.
Wait, dopamine? I thought dopamine was the happy chemical, the reward chemical, the I just ate a cookie chemical.
That is the common misconception. It's a huge oversimplification. Dopamine is about motivation, craving, and salience. It tells your brain what's important.
Salient, so like what to pay attention to.
Exactly. In this context, we are talking about a specific release of dopamine in the anteromedial prefrontal cortex, or MPFC.
Okay, what is it doing there?
Think of your brain like a radio. Normally, there was a lot of static. You hear thoughts about laundry, you hear the car outside, you feel an itch on your leg, you wonder what's for dinner. That is the noise.
My brain is mostly noise, like 90% noise.
That's pretty standard. But when that acute stress hits, the dopamine surge acts as a gatekeeper. It increases the signal-to-noise ratio.
Oh, okay.
It essentially turns the volume knob of the noise down to 0 and turns the volume of the signal, the deadline, up to maximum.
So it's a filter.
It's a massive filter, a biological noise-canceling headphone. This is why you forget to eat. Your brain has decided that hunger is noise.
Yeah, and sleepiness.
Sleep is noise.
Yeah.
Only signal that matters is the task at hand. You literally, biologically, cannot pay attention to anything else. That is the tunnel vision.
That is wild. So when I say I work better under pressure, what I'm really saying is I am incapable of filtering out distraction without a massive chemical override.
In a way, yes. You are using a biochemical sledgehammer to do a job that your executive function is supposed to do with a scalpel.
Wow.
But there's another player here that we often overlook, and that's glutamate.
Glutamate, I know that from food labels, MSG,
Okay.
monosodium glutamate, but it's in the brain too.
It is the primary excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain. It's what neurons use to send signals to other neurons. It's the go signal, basically.
So it's just making everything fire faster.
Not just faster, but more. Selectively. In the prefrontal cortex, a balanced glutamatergic environment is absolutely necessary for something called response inhibition.
Response inhibition. Let's unpack that.
That's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability to inhibit a response. It's the ability to not do the thing you want to do.
Like opening a new tab to check the news.
Exactly. Your brain has an impulse. Check news. Response inhibition is the brake pedal that says, no, we are writing.
And my brake pedal is usually pretty mushy.
In that casual procrastination mode, it's very mushy. You press it, but the car keeps rolling. When the stress response kicks in, the glutamate levels shift to stiffen that brake pedal. It keeps you on the track.
I like the analogy you read in the notes here. It's like putting blinders on a horse.
Yes. The horse might want to look at the grass on the side of the road. The blinders force it to look only at the finish line.
So let me see if I have this right. Adrenaline is the whip that gets the horse moving. Dopamine is the track itself, making it the only path available.
Yep.
And the glutamate is the blinders, stopping the horse from even seeing the distractions.
That's a perfect summary. It's an all-encompassing system.
That is an intense image. We are whipping our own brains.
We are. And we haven't even talked about the fuel yet, because running this high-intensity machinery requires massive amounts of energy.
Oh, right. Where does that come from? It's not from the pizza I haven't eaten.
That's where the cortisol comes in.
The infamous strunk hormone.
Correct. The SAM axis, the adrenaline, is the fast electrical response. The HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is the slow chemical burn.
So it's a different system.
A different, slower, more sustained system. It releases cortisol.
And cortisol is the stress hormone. We hear about it all the time, usually in a bad context.
It gets a bad rap, but in the short term, it's vital. Its
Mm.
primary job in this crisis is energy mobilization.
How does it do that?
It tells your liver to produce glucose. It basically tells your body, dump all available sugar into the bloodstream. The brain needs to burn it right now.
So it's like a resource manager for the body.
A very ruthless one.
Mm.
It also says, stop digesting food, stop repairing tissue, stop the immune system. We need everything for the engine.
Wow. It just shuts down all non-essential services.
Everything.
So to recap this deadline miracle, we have adrenaline waking us up like a slap in the face. We have dopamine muting the world so we only see the task. We have glutamate stopping us from clicking away. And we have cortisol burning down the furniture to heat the house.
That is the chemical cocktail of the last minute. It is a state of survival. Your brain is prioritizing immediate survival, avoiding the failure of the deadline over everything else. Long-term health, not a priority right now.
It is fascinating and slightly terrifying that our bodies treat submitting a PDF with the same biological gravity as fighting off a wolf pack.
It really highlights how ancient our hardware is. We are writing software for the 21st century on hardware from the Pleistocene era.
So this brings me to the big question. If we have this incredible, albeit destructive, machinery to get things done, why do we wait? Why do we put ourselves through this? Why not just start earlier? Is it just that we are bad people?
No, you are not a bad person. You are just bad at math.
I am bad at math.
Or rather, your brain is bad at a very specific type of intuitive math.
Yeah.
This is where we have to leave biology for a moment and look at behavioral economics.
Okay, I'm ready for the math. Let's do this.
First, we have to talk about Parkinson's law. You've probably heard the adage, work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion.
Oh, yes. If you give me a week to write a paragraph, it will take me a week. If you give me 10 minutes, it will take 10 minutes.
Precisely. Cyril Northcote Parkinson coined this back in 1955. But there's a nuance to it that I love, often called the Parkinson's law of triviality, or sometimes bike shedding.
Bike shedding, where does that come from? That's a strange name.
The story goes that a committee was approving plans for a nuclear power plant, a massive, complex project.
Right.
They spent 5 minutes approving the multi-million-dollar reactor because it was too complex for anyone to really understand. They just had to trust the experts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then they spent 45 minutes arguing about the materials for the staff bike shed because everyone understood what a bike shed was. Everyone had an opinion.
Oh, that hits home. That is me arguing with myself about which font to use for the presentation instead of writing the content.
Exactly. When time is abundant, say you have those 3 weeks, you don't just sit there. You fill that time with triviality. You overplan. You organize your desk.
You do research.
You focus on the bike shed issues because the pressure isn't there to force you to prioritize the reactor.
So the deadline acts as a forcing function. It just strips away all the non-essential decisions.
Yes, it strips away the complexity. When you have 3 weeks, the task feels incredibly complex because you have time to make it complex. When you have 3 hours, the task becomes simple. Put words on page. It removes the paralysis of choice.
But there's a deeper reason why we wait, right? It's not just about filling time, it's about how we value time.
Correct. This is the concept of hyperbolic discounting. And there is a formula for this that I think is really helpful to visualize.
Okay, let's do a mental whiteboard. Paint the picture for me.
Imagine a fraction. On the left, we have V. That is the value. That's how motivated you are to do the task right now.
Okay, V is motivation. Got it.
On the other side of the equal sign, on the top of the fraction, the numerator is A. That's the amount of the reward. How big is the payoff?
Like getting a good grade, getting paid, feeling proud.
Right. Big reward, big number on top.
Okay.
Now look at the bottom of the fraction, the denominator. This is where the problem lies. The denominator is 1 plus K times D. So 1 plus KD.
Okay, let's unpack the letters. D. What's D?
D is the delay. How long do you have to wait to get the reward?
And K.
K is your personal impulsivity factor.
Mm.
How much do you personally struggle with waiting? Some people have a high K, some have low K. It's a personal variable.
Okay, so let's run the math. If I have a project due in 3 weeks, D is a big number.
Right. Let's say D is 21 days. Because D is in the denominator, a big number there makes the total value, V, very small. You are dividing the reward by a huge number.
So even if the reward is $1 million, if the delay is 10 years, the value to me right now is meh.
Exactly. The present value is tiny. Your brain discounts the future reward heavily. But now, look at the alternative action, checking Instagram.
Okay. The reward A is tiny. It's a mild chuckle at a meme, almost nothing.
But what is D? What is the delay?
0. It's instant gratification.
Exactly. D is 0, so you are dividing the reward by 1. The value stays intact.
So mathematically to my brain, small reward, 0 delay, big delay.
Precisely. The cookie now is mathematically more valuable to your brain than the six-pack abs in a year. This is present bias.
So it's not that I'm weak, it's that my brain is wired for immediate returns.
Our brains view our future self almost as a stranger. When you say, I'll do it next week, you aren't really thinking, I will do this. You're emotionally feeling like, that guy, future me, will do this.
It's someone else's problem.
It is.
Poor future me. I treat him so badly. I pile work on him. I feed him garbage. I don't let him sleep. And then I'm surprised when he's stressed out.
We all do it. But here's the mechanism of the deadline. As the deadline approaches, what happens to D?
D gets smaller. It goes from 21 days to 7 days to 1 day to 1 hour.
And as the denominator shrinks, the value skyrockets. It's exponential. It's a hockey stick curve.
It's the tipping point.
Right. Suddenly, at 10:00 p.m., D is so small that the value of the project finally overtakes the value of the distraction.
Yeah.
Desperation is just the moment where the math finally works out in favor of doing the work.
That makes so much sense. We aren't just lazy. We are running an unconscious algorithm that is heavily biased toward now, and we have to wait for the numbers to shift before we can act.
Correct. And again, the algorithm worked great when now meant eat this berry before you starve. It works less well for, say, for retirement or write a thesis.
I want to connect this back to the stress aspect. We talked about how the stress chemicals focus us, but usually we hear that stress is bad for performance. If I'm panicked, shouldn't I be doing a worse job? Why is the work sometimes good?
That is a very important question. And the answer lies in something called the Yerkes-Dodson law.
Yerkes-Dodson. This sounds like a 19th century law firm. If you've been injured in a carriage accident, call Yerkes and Dodson.
It does, doesn't it? It's actually from 1908, Robert Yerkes and John Dodson. And their research well, let's just say ethics boards were different back then.
Oh, no.
They were doing experiments with Japanese dancing mice.
Japanese dancing mice, is that a technical term?
It's a specific breed of mouse that has a mutation causing it to spin around. But yes, dancing mice, you put these mice in a maze where they had to choose between a black box and a white box. If they chose the black box, they got an electric shock.
Okay, slightly less cute than dancing mice implies.
It's true. What they were testing was the relationship between the intensity of the shock, arousal stress, and how fast the mice learned the habit of choosing the white box.
Then what did they find?
What they found was fascinating. When the shocks were very mild, the mice learned slowly. They weren't motivated. They didn't really care.
Low stakes. Makes sense.
Right. When the shocks were moderate, they learned very quickly. They were alert, focused, and efficient.
The Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly. But, and here is the key, when the shocks were severe, they couldn't learn, they froze.
So if we graph this, it looks like an upside-down U.
Yes, the inverted U curve. On the left, you have low arousal, boredom, low motivation, checking your phone. In the middle, you have the peak optimal arousal.
That's the sweet spot.
This is eustress, or good stress, high focus flow. On the right, you have high arousal anxiety, panic, frazzle, performance craters.
So the goal of the deadline miracle is to ride that curve right up to the top of the peak. We want to generate just enough stress to be optimal, but not so much that we fall off the other side.
That's the goal. We procrastinate to move ourselves from the left side, boredom, to the middle peak. But there's a huge caveat in the Yerkes-Dodson law that people forget. And this explains why sometimes the work isn't good.
What's the caveat?
The optimal level of stress depends entirely on the complexity of the task.
Okay, how so?
If the task is simple or habitual like sprinting or filing papers or doing data entry, you can tolerate a lot of arousal. High adrenaline actually helps you crank that out.
So repetitive muscle memory type tasks.
Yes, you can execute simple tasks while screaming in terror.
Okay. Run away is a simple task.
But if the task is complex, novel, or requires creativity like writing a nuanced script or solving a difficult coding problem or designing a strategy, the optimal arousal level is much lower.
Why is that?
High stress shuts down the cognitive flexibility you need for problem solving. It literally narrows your focus.
So the tunnel vision we talked about earlier.
It's a double-edged sword. It focuses you, but it narrows your thinking. You stop making lateral connections. You stop seeing the big picture.
This explains so much. This is why I can answer 100 emails in a panic, but if I try to write a creative essay at 4 a.m., it ends up being gibberish.
Exactly.
Huh?
Relying on desperation works for execution, getting the thing done. It is terrible for ideation or deep quality. You might finish the project, but you probably killed the creativity in the process.
So we are using a sledgehammer when we need a scalpel.
Well put. And over time, using the sledgehammer breaks the table.
I want to pivot a bit. We've been talking about this as if it's a universal human flaw, but I have friends who swear by this. They say, I'm not procrastinating, I'm incubating. I work better under pressure. And honestly, they seem fine.
They're not stressed.
They aren't stressed. They just, wait, are they lying to themselves? Or are they built differently?
They might not be lying. The research actually distinguishes between two types of procrastinators. This is a really important distinction made by researchers like Xu and Choi. They split people into passive procrastinators and active procrastinators.
Okay, let's break this down. What is the passive procrastinator? I feel like I know him intimately.
The passive procrastinator is what we traditionally think of. This is the person paralyzed by indecision. They want to do the work, but they can't start.
The boulder is too heavy.
Precisely. They have low self-efficacy, meaning they don't believe they can do it. When they delay, they feel guilt, shame, and high anxiety.
Crying in the shower.
Yes. They end up missing deadlines or suffering through them. It is a negative, debilitating experience.
And the active ones. Who are these unicorns?
Active procrastinators, sometimes called incubators, intentionally delay the work.
It's a choice.
It's a strategic decision. They prefer the time pressure. They have high emotional stability and high self-efficacy. They look at the timeline and say, I can do this in 4 hours, so I will wait until 4 hours before.
And they don't feel bad about waiting.
No, because it's part of their process. They use the deadline to deliberately induce that flow state we talked about. They want the adrenaline because they know it makes them efficient. But, and this is key, they are not panicked. They are in control.
They are the clutch players, the quarterback who plays better in the fourth quarter.
Exactly. The sources note that active procrastinators share personality traits with non-procrastinators, things like conscientiousness and emotional stability. They aren't avoiding the work out of fear. They are compressing the work to increase efficiency.
That sounds great. How do I know if I'm an active procrastinator or just a passive one in denial? Because I tell myself I'm incubating, but I'm pretty sure I'm just avoiding pain.
The litmus test is the emotional state. Do you consistently meet the deadline? Is the quality high? And most importantly, do you feel in control or do you feel shame?
Right.
If you are agonizing over the delay, beating yourself up, losing sleep, you are likely a passive procrastinator. If you are happily doing other things and then seamlessly switching gears, you might be active.
I feel like most of us oscillate between the two, depending on the stakes or the task.
Absolutely. But there is another group we have to talk about because for them, this mechanism is critical. We need to talk about ADHD and neurodivergence.
I was going to ask about that because this wait for the panic cycle is practically the definition of the ADHD experience for many people.
It is. And for a long time, people with ADHD were just labeled as lazy or poor time managers. But the neurobiology tells a completely different story. Dr. Ari Tuckman calls ADHD an attention deficit disorder.
That's a powerful rephrasing. It's not about attention, it's about intention.
It's not that people with ADHD don't know what to do. They know exactly what to do. It's a problem of activation energy.
Give me a physics analogy. I love a good physics analogy.
Okay. Think of a heavy boulder sitting on a flat surface. To get it moving, you need a huge amount of force to overcome the static friction.
Right, the initial push.
Once it's rolling, it's easier to keep moving. Kinetic friction is lower. For a neurotypical brain, the push required to start a task, say fold the laundry, is relatively small. Their baseline dopamine levels are high enough that they can just do it.
You just stand up and fold. It's annoying.
For an ADHD brain, the baseline dopamine levels are often lower. The static friction is immense. The task fold laundry feels physically heavy. It feels impossible.
So the boulder is heavier for them.
Or the ground is stickier. They literally cannot generate the internal spark to push the boulder.
Until the crisis hits.
Until the crisis. The crisis, the deadline, the angry boss, the threat of failure provides that massive external dopamine spike we talked about earlier. It floods the system. Suddenly, there is enough chemical energy to bridge the activation barrier.
So for someone with ADHD, the cycle of procrastination panic focus isn't just a bad habit, it's a form of self-medication.
Exactly. They are unconsciously manufacturing the neurotransmitters they need to function. They're using their own adrenal glands as a pharmacy.
That reframes the whole laziness stigma, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a moral failure. It's a mechanic trying to jumpstart a car with a dead battery.
Yes. And understanding that is the first step to breaking the cycle. Because while it works,
Hmm.
it is incredibly expensive biologically.
Let's talk about the bill coming due. Because if I can churn out a week's work in one night, why shouldn't I just live like this? Why not just ride the lightning every week? What is the cost of the crash?
It's significant. We called it a biological credit card earlier, and the interest rates are predatory. First, let's go back to cortisol.
The slow burn energy hormone.
Cortisol is great in short bursts, but it is toxic in long doses. Chronic activation of the HPA axis, having that cortisol flooding your system over and over, can lead to hippocampal atrophy.
Wait, atrophy means shrinking. You're saying my brain shrinks.
Yes, the hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for memory consolidation and emotion regulation.
So, memory and moods.
Crucial stuff. And it is extremely sensitive to cortisol. Chronic stress can literally kill neurons in the hippocampus and shrink this part of your brain.
That is terrifying. So I'm getting the report done, but I'm slowly erasing my memory and my emotional control.
It's a real documented risk of chronic stress, and it gets worse. Remember the Yerkes-Dodson curve? The frazzle state?
The panic side of the curve, yeah.
When you push past the peak into the high arousal zone too often, you get burnout. Physically, the toll includes hypertension, cardiovascular strain, and even cellular aging.
Cellular aging. How?
The stress response shortens your telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA. Shorter telomeres are linked to faster aging and age-related diseases.
So I'm aging faster, too. Great. I'm shrinking my brain and aging my cells. This is not the superpower I thought it was.
And cognitively. The irony is that chronic stress makes you dumber. Studies show that high stress levels make us significantly more likely to exhibit poor thinking skills.
Because the brain is in survival mode.
Exactly. To save energy for the threat, the brain effectively dims the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term planning, empathy, and complex thought.
The smart part of the brain.
The smart, rational part. So by relying on panic to work, you are slowly eroding the very hardware you need to do good work. You are burning the engine to make the car go faster. Eventually, the engine blows.
Okay, you have sufficiently scared me. I do not want to shrink my hippocampus. I do not want to shorten my telomeres. But here's the reality. I still need to get work done. And sometimes I feel like I can't work without that pressure. How do we hack this?
Right.
How do we get the productivity without the panic?
We need to engineer the environment.
Mm.
The goal is to move from external urgency, the tiger chasing you, to internal urgency, building a fence so the tiger never gets close.
Okay.
We need to simulate the chemical conditions of the deadline without the actual life or death threat.
Cheat codes. I like it. Give me strategy number 1.
Strategy 1 is commitment devices. This comes straight from behavioral economics. Yeah. It's about pre-commitment.
Like Odysseus tying himself to the mast so he wouldn't steer the ship into the rocks when he heard the sirens.
Exactly like Odysseus. You are acknowledging that future you is weak. Future you will want to check Instagram. So present you, who has rational needs, to restrict future you's choices.
Okay, but I'm not on a boat. What does a modern mast look like?
It can be digital.
Yeah.
There are apps like Freedom or Cold Turkey that literally lock you out of websites for a set time.
Oh, I've heard of those.
And you can't just turn them off. Some of them require you to restart your computer or even type a long random string of text to unlock it. You make it painful to quit.
Hard barriers.
Yes. But even more powerful are social commitment devices.
Shame.
Accountability.
Yeah.
If you just tell yourself, I'll finish this by 2.0, you can lie to yourself. The stakes are 0.
I do that all the time.
But if you email your boss or a colleague and say, I will send you this draft by 2.0 BEM, you have created a real deadline.
You are artificially bringing the pain of failure closer.
Yes. You are hacking the hyperbolic discounting formula. You are reducing delay, by creating an artificial deadline with a social cost. You are simulating the tiger, but it's a small, manageable tiger.
Okay, I can do that. Create false deadlines with real people. What's strategy number 2? Because sometimes the problem isn't the deadline, it's just starting. It's that boulder we talked about.
Strategy 2 is for the dopamine deficit. It's called simulated urgency via mini deadlines. Specifically, I love the just 10 method.
Just 10.
You commit to doing the task for only 10 minutes. That is it. You tell yourself, I do not have to finish this. I just have to do 10 minutes. You can set a timer.
How does that help? 10 minutes isn't enough to finish anything.
It's not about finishing. It's about the activation energy. The brain looks at entire report and says, too big, too scary, run away. The amygdala fires up.
Total overwhelm.
Right, but the brain looks at work for 10 minutes and says, I can do that. It lowers the bar. It seems manageable.
It reduces the static friction.
Exactly. And here is the magic. Once the boulder is rolling, you often get a little hit of dopamine from the progress. The momentum takes over. Kinetic friction is lower than static friction. Most of the time, you won't stop at 10 minutes.
It's tricking the ignition system.
And if you combine this with Parkinson's law, it's even better. Set a timer. I have 20 minutes to write this outline. Go.
Artificial scarcity.
Yes. If you give yourself all day, it takes all day. If you give yourself 20 minutes, you force your brain to filter the signal from the noise immediately. You induce a mini state of flow without the catastrophic cortisol dump of an all-nighter.
I love that. Artificial scarcity. It sounds like something a diamond company would do, but applied to my time. Okay, what about the aftermath? Because one of my problems is that even after I finish, I feel wired. I can't sleep, and then the next day is ruined.
This is critical. Strategy 3 is the shutdown ritual.
This sounds like powering down a robot. System powering down.
It sort of is. This concept is popularized by Cal Newport. You need a specific, consistent routine to end the workday.
Why? Why not just close the laptop?
Because of the Zeigarnik effect.
That sounds like a sci-fi villain. Beware the Zeigarnik effect.
It's a psychological phenomenon named after Bluma Zeigarnik. She noticed that waiters in a cafe could remember complex orders perfectly. Until the food was delivered. Once the task was complete, they instantly forgot it.
So the brain holds on to open tasks, like open tabs in a browser.
Exactly. The brain has a tendency to remember and ruminate on uncompleted tasks. It loops them in the background. If you don't formally close the day, your brain keeps spinning on those open loops all night. Did I reply to that email? What about the memo?
Which keeps the cortisol flowing and keeps the screensaver from turning on.
Right. You need the HPA axis to reset so you can sleep and recharge. So a shutdown ritual works like this. You review your tasks, you make a plan for tomorrow so your brain knows the tasks are safe.
So you're telling your brain, don't worry, I wrote it down.
Precisely. You close your tabs, and then, this sounds silly, but it is essential, you say a phrase.
You literally say it out loud, like to the empty room.
Yes. Newport suggests schedule shutdown complete, or you can say system off, or done.
It feels a bit theatrical.
It is theatrical, that's the point. It is a somatic signal to your brain that the threat mode is over. You are giving yourself permission to stop ruminating.
I suppose it's like closing the book. It creates a boundary.
Exactly, and without that boundary, the stress bleeds into your evening, into your sleep, and into the next morning. And a depleted battery leads to more procrastination.
It's a vicious cycle. If I'm tired, I have less willpower, so I procrastinate more, so I panic more, so I'm more tired.
Precisely. The shutdown ritual breaks the cycle.
We also have a note here about structure. The 1-3-5 rule, what is that?
This is a way to organize a to-do list so it doesn't look like a mountain. You plan your day with 1 big task, 3 medium tasks, and 5 small tasks.
That seems strangely specific. Why that combination?
It creates a container for the day. One of the biggest triggers for procrastination is overwhelm. When you look at a list of 20 things, your amygdala, the fear center, lights up. I can't survive this.
So you run to the shower to clean the grout.
Right. The 1-3-5 rule limits the scope. I only have to do one big thing today. It feels manageable. It calms the amygdala down enough for the prefrontal cortex to come online. It gives you structure and a sense of accomplishment as you check things off.
So let's try to synthesize all of this, because we have covered a lot of ground. We started with the deadline miracle, which turns out to be a deadline hijack.
Yes. It works because it is a biological override switch. It uses adrenaline to wake us up, dopamine to mute the distractions, and glutamate to lock us in. It creates tunnel vision.
And while that feels productive, it's actually a survival response. It's desperation-induced productivity. And we are paying for it with potential memory loss, accelerated aging, and burnout.
Correct. It works for sprinting, but you cannot run a marathon in a series of sprints. You will collapse.
And the reason we do it is because our brains are terrible at math. We use hyperbolic discounting to devalue the future and overvalue the present. We treat future us like a stranger.
Yes, an untrustworthy stranger we keep dumping work on.
So the solution isn't to try harder or be less lazy. It's to outsmart the biology.
Exactly. You can't win a fight against your own biology with willpower alone. You have to change the environment.
We use commitment devices to hack the math. We use mini deadlines to lower the activation energy. And we use shutdown rituals to protect our rest.
We move from reactive waiting for the tiger to proactive building the fence.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. I think I'm going to go apologize to my hippocampus now. I've been treating it very poorly.
You will appreciate that. Sleep is the best apology you can give it.
Before we sign off, do you have one final thought for our listeners? Something to chew on?
I do. I want to leave you with a thought on identity versus biology. So many people we talk to identify as lazy, or they say, I'm just chaotic, or I'm a chronic procrastinator. They carry so much shame about it. They think it's a deep, dark character flaw.
I think we've all felt that why can't I just be normal feeling?
Well, what if you aren't lazy? What if you are just unconsciously using a high-cost biological mechanism, panic, to self-medicate a dopamine regulation issue?
Wow, that hits hard. So it's not a moral failing, it's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism that has a very high price. When you realize it's biology, not morality, the shame disappears.
And that matters because...
And that is crucial, because shame triggers stress, and stress triggers the amygdala. And the amygdala shuts down the prefrontal cortex. Shame literally makes you procrastinate more.
So forgiving yourself is actually a productivity strategy.
It is. It's the first and most important step. When you stop judging your brain, you can start working with it. You can stop beating yourself up and start building the strategies, the external structures that actually help you function. You don't need to be a better person. You just need a better system for your dopamine.
That is a powerful place to end. Stop acting like you're broken and start acting like you're just human.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for this deep dive. And to our listeners, go set a timer for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. And get started. We'll see you next time.